Chapter 2897, Bone Emperor invites you. Zhen Wushuang stood quietly in the hall, waiting for the response of the people in front of him. After a brief discussion, the experts of Heavenly Curve Palace came to a unanimous decision. Lord Zhen Yi, we are willing to follow you. From now on, you will be the most respected person in the Heavenly Curve world, Divine Master Bloodlamp said solemnly. Hearing this, Zhen Wushuang smiled with satisfaction, but he was not surprised. He had long heard that the former Realm Master of Heavenly Curve World was supreme and overbearing in the Heavenly Curve World, whether to outsiders or his subordinates. Therefore, not many people in the Heavenly Curve World were truly loyal to him. The Black Blood Emperor he killed was one of them, but Bloodlamp Divine Master was not absolutely loyal to the Realm Master of Heavenly Curve World. Now that Realm Master Tian Chu was dead, it was the wisest choice for Bloodlamp Divine Master and the others to submit to him. After subduing Bloodlamp Divine Master and the others, Zhen Wushuang would begin to pacify the turmoil in the Heavenly Curve World. The Heavenly Curve World was in chaos because it lacked the Immortal Saint's battle strength. But now that Zhen Wushuang had arrived, it was easy for him to pacify the turmoil. He took out the corpse puppet army and led it by Divine Master Bloodlamp to wipe out the forces. Even if there were a stubborn resistance, he would come out personally. In front of his absolute strength, the experts of the Heavenly Curve World had no room to struggle. In less than a month, the turmoil in the Heavenly Curve World was completely calmed down. The forces bowed their heads and submitted to him. Zhen Wushuang had officially taken over the fallen Realm Master and become the new ruler of the Heavenly Curve World. Since then, all the preparations had been completed. All that was left was for the Sword Alliance to transfer over. In a desolate void in the Heavenly Curve World. Buzz. A hidden space passage suddenly lit up. A moment later, a black-robed figure appeared in the void like a ghost. Has he arrived at the Heavenly Curve World? The ghost figure raised his head, revealing a pair of demonic eyes. That Zhen Yi is really troublesome. Previously, he killed the Heavenly Curve World Lord and Elder Su in the Dragon Phoenix Sacred City. After that, he returned to the Pill Sun Sacred World. When I rushed to the Pill Sun Sacred World, he went to the Heavenly Void Temple. He had already gone to the Dragon God World by the time I arrived to look for the old Dragon God. When I received the news and went to the Dragon God World again, this Sword One actually came to the Heavenly Curve World again. The ghost figure shook his head, he felt bitter in his heart. I hope I can meet him this time. The ghost figure immediately set off. Soon, he arrived at the former base of Heavenly Curve Palace. He did not make a wasted trip this time because he was indeed still in Heavenly Curve Palace. Mr. Zhen Yi. The ghost figure came to Zhen Wushuang and said with a smile. Although his expression was modest, he was not too afraid. Who are you? Zhen Wushuang looked at the person in front of him in confusion. The aura of the person in front of him was very strange and obscure. However, Zhen Wushuang could still tell that this person was a genuine immortal saint. Dongling from the Bone Emperor realm. The ghost figure raised his head, revealing an extremely demonic young face. Bone Emperor realm? You're from the Bone Emperor realm? Zhen Wushuang was stunned. The most powerful expert in the 9 realms of the Golden Crow was the Supreme Bone Emperor. Not only was he terrifyingly strong, but he was unrivaled in the 9 realms of the Golden Crow. He also had many experts under his command, including several immortal saints. When the Dragon Phoenix list was released, one of the immortal saints under the Bone Emperor went to attend the ceremony. Now, Dongling was obviously the second one. Mr. Zhen Yi, I'm here today on the order of my Lord Bone Emperor. My lord wants to invite you to the Bone Emperor realm to meet him, Dongling said. Bone Emperor invited me? Zhen Wushuang frowned slightly. He had no contact with this Bone Emperor, and they had no contact at all. But now, this Bone Emperor had specially sent someone to invite him. This made Zhen Wushuang curious about the purpose of the Bone Emperor. Could it be that the Bone Emperor felt threatened by my previous achievements and potential, so he came to find me? Zhen Wushuang thought to himself. However, he immediately denied this guess. No, that Bone Emperor is not a fool for being the overlord of the 9 Golden Crow realms for so long. He should know that what I have is not limited by the 9 Golden Crow realms. I will definitely leave the 9 Golden Crow realms for a more vast place in the future. It won't be long before I leave. There's no need for him to get involved with me. He just needs to wait for me to leave. By then, he will still be the overlord of the 9 Golden Crow realms. I won't affect his status at all. Secondly, even if he is very jealous, he should be able to tell that he can't kill me. In the previous battle, Jian Wushuang had revealed many trump cards, including his immortal body. Realm Master Tian Chu and the others could not control the immortal body at all, and they were still far from it. However, as long as an expert had the immortal body, it would be very difficult for an immortal saint of the same level to kill him. Although Jian Wushuang was not an immortal saint, his battle strength was much stronger than that of an ordinary immortal saint. Moreover, he had an immortal body. Therefore, even if Lord Bone Emperor attacked him personally, he could defeat or suppress him. However, it was impossible to kill him. Bone Emperor should also know this. Therefore, the Bone Emperor came to invite him was most likely not to deal with him but for other purposes. However, Jian Wushuang could not guess what his purpose was. Mr. Dongling, do you know why the Bone Emperor invited me? Jian Wushuang asked. My lord hasn't told me. Dongling shook her head. Jian Wushuang knocked on the armchair with his fingers. Then, after a moment of hesitation, he made a decision. Since the Bone Emperor invited me, I'll go with you. Jian Wushuang smiled. Seeing Jian Wushuang agree, Dongling also smiled. After Jian Wushuang gave a few instructions to Divine Master Bloodlamp, he followed Dongling to the Bone Emperor realm. The Bone Emperor realm was an emperor realm. In terms of territory, the Bone Emperor realm was much larger than the other realms in the 9 realms of the Golden Crow. Half of the 9 realms of the Golden Crow territory was occupied by the Bone Emperor realm. With such a large territory, there were naturally more experts. It was said that there were several immortal saints in the Bone Emperor realm, but most of them had submitted to the Bone Emperor. Whether it was in the Bone Emperor realm or in the 9 realms of the Golden Crow, the Bone Emperor was a man of his word. From this, one could see his strength. Chapter 2898, Bone Emperor. Under the guidance of Dongling, Jian Wushuang arrived at the Bone Emperor Castle. Upon entering the Bone Emperor Castle, all he could see was a pile of white bones. When he reached the deepest part of the Bone Emperor Castle, Jian Wushuang finally saw the Bone Emperor on a high platform made entirely of skulls. Sir, Mr. Jian Yi has arrived, Dongling greeted respectfully. Greetings, Lord Bone Emperor. Jian Wushuang also bowed humbly. He knew very well that the Bone Emperor was far stronger than him in terms of strength alone. He should also maintain a certain amount of respect in front of the Bone Emperor. While bowing, he also looked at the skinny, short, and ordinary-looking old man on the throne. At first glance, this old man looked no different from an ordinary person. If it were not for the fact that they were in the Bone Emperor Castle, it was hard for Jian Wushuang to imagine that this old man was the overlord of the 9 realms of the Golden Crow. Dongling, you may leave first, Bone Emperor ordered in a gentle voice. Yes. Dongling immediately left, leaving only Jian Wushuang and Bone Emperor in the vast space of corpses. Please take a seat. Bone Emperor waved his hand, and a throne made of white bones appeared behind Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang did not stand on ceremony and directly sat down. Then, the throne rose to a high place and sat on the same level as the Bone Emperor. Jian Yi, do you know why I've invited you here today? Bone Emperor looked at Jian Wushuang with a smile. I don't know. Please enlighten me, Lord Bone Emperor. Jian Wushuang shook his head. Actually, it's nothing. I just feel that you have great potential, so I want to meet you. The Bone Emperor said. Is it that simple? Jian Wushuang frowned. Of course, he did not think that the Bone Emperor's purpose was so simple. Jian Yi, I have investigated your information. You came from the Pill Sun sacred world and rose for a very short time. When you rose, you tried to help the declining Crimson Rock Castle. However, as far as I know, there is no relationship between you and Crimson Rock Castle. So, if I'm not wrong, you must have a deep relationship with the fallen Crimson Rock Saint, right? The Bone Emperor suddenly asked. Yes, I do. Jian Wushuang did not deny it. Are you a personal disciple of Saint Crimson Rock? The Bone Emperor asked. No. Jian Wushuang shook his head. Saint Crimson Rock and I are just working together. His remaining consciousness has given me a lot of benefits, so I promised to help his daughter, Yin Sua, get out of this predicament and take full control of Crimson Rock Castle. His relationship with the Crimson Rock Saint and the agreement between the two of them were not convenient to announce previously. However, now that the Pill Sun sacred world had completely stabilized, there was nothing left to hide. Is that so? The Bone Emperor raised his brows. Following that, he smiled sinisterly and said, that Crimson Rock Saint has really good taste. He is clearly already dead, yet he was able to invite such a genius to help Crimson Rock Castle. If Crimson Rock Castle did not have your full assistance, I'm afraid it would have long ceased to exist. After a pause, Bone Emperor spoke again. For a genius like you, or even a monster, to ask you to work for him wholeheartedly, Saint Crimson Rock must have paid a great price. Jian Wushuang's expression changed. He vaguely felt that this Lord Bone Emperor was trying to trick him again. Saint Crimson Rock did pay a price, but when I agreed with Saint Crimson Rock, I didn't even reach the level of Divine Master. Therefore, my horizons were very limited. The treasures given by Saint Crimson Rock were not very precious, but they were of great use to me at that time. As a person who values friendship, I will do my best to fulfill my promise to others. Although it's a little difficult, I will still do my best, Jian Wushuang said. That can't be right, Bone Emperor said with a strange smile. It's a scroll of heaven-sealing painting. It's a treasure that many immortal saints would fight over. So how could it become an insignificant treasure in your mouth? Hearing this, Jian Wushuang's expression suddenly changed. Although he recovered immediately, Bone Emperor still noticed it. Bone Emperor's eyes immediately flashed with a bright light. Sure enough, Hongsha gave you the heaven-sealing map scroll in his hand. Lord Bone Emperor, if you have anything to ask, feel free to ask. There's no need to beat around the bush. Jian Wushuang frowned with some displeasure. Haha, don't be nervous. It's just that I couldn't be sure before, so I can't say too much about some things. But now that I know that Hongsha's heaven-sealing map scroll is in your hands, it's easy to deal with. Bone Emperor smiled indifferently. The seal the heavens painting, that's a good thing. It's said that the complete seal of the heavens painting contains a great fortune, and it's even related to a great secret. But unfortunately, the seal the heavens painting has been divided into countless pieces since a long time ago. So it's impossible to gather the complete seal of the heavens painting. However, there have been rumors in the outside world that even if there is only one heaven-sealing painting scroll, it will be of great help to the cultivator. Gathering 2 scrolls is even more useful. As for gathering 3 scrolls, it is said that you can get a great opportunity. Although I don't know whether this rumor is true or not, since it can spread throughout the entire absolute beginning divine realm, it is most likely useful. And I have known for a long time that Crimson Rock has a heaven-sealing painting scroll. Even his death is related to this heaven-sealing painting scroll. However, since his death, some of the treasures in his hands have been passed down from Crimson Rock Castle. However, there has been no news of the heaven-sealing scroll. I only heard that he left it in his tomb, waiting for someone to pass his test and become his personal disciple. Since the consciousness left by Saint Crimson Rock has met you for the new year and agreed with you, the heaven-sealing scroll most likely fell into your hands. Only treasures like the heaven-sealing scroll can move a genius like you. Therefore, I deliberately tested you just now. Now it seems that it's true. However, Jian Wushuang's expression had turned cold. Indeed, the heaven-sealing scroll is in my hands. Could it be that Lord Bone Emperor came for it? Jian Wushuang stared at Bone Emperor. Don't misunderstand. I'm not interested in the heaven-sealing scroll in your hands. After all, you're not the only one who has it. I also have one in my hands, Bone Emperor said as he flipped his hand. He immediately took out an ancient scroll that emitted a mysterious aura. Chapter 2899. Purpose. Looking at the ancient scroll taken out by Bone Emperor, Jian Wushuang's pupils constricted. He was very familiar with this ancient scroll because there were 2 such scrolls in his interspatial ring. Undoubtedly, what Bone Emperor took out was also a scroll of heaven-sealing painting. The third one. Jian Wushuang immediately became excited. This was normal. As Bone Emperor said, the more heaven-sealing painting scrolls there were, the more benefits he would get. During this time, his comprehension of sword principles and rules had improved so quickly. Besides his extraordinary talent, the most important thing was that he had the help of 2 heaven-sealing painting scrolls. These 2 heaven-sealing painting scrolls had helped him a lot. Both of them had helped him a lot. As for the third one, it was rumored that gathering 3 heaven-sealing painting scrolls at once was enough to obtain an extraordinary opportunity. Jian Wushuang was filled with anticipation and curiosity about this opportunity. Now, the third heaven-sealing painting scroll appeared in front of him. Although he was pleasantly surprised, Jian Wushuang remained calm on the surface. I didn't expect Lord Bone Emperor to have a scroll of the heaven-sealing painting, Jian Wushuang said. Why? Are you interested in the scroll? Bone Emperor smiled and said, if you want it, I can give it to you. As you said, the more scrolls you have, the more benefits you will get. I've benefited a lot from the scroll over the years. Now that I have a chance to get the second scroll, I can't miss it. But what are your conditions, Lord Bone Emperor? Jian Wushuang said. He knew that Bone Emperor would not give him the heaven-sealing map scroll for no reason. There must be a price to pay. He was just curious about what kind of request Bone Emperor would make. The heaven-sealing map scroll is of no use to me. Since you need it, I can give it to you now. As for the conditions, I do have one, but it should be a piece of cake for you, Bone Emperor said. Tell me. Jian Wushuang looked at Bone Emperor. Jian Yi, have you heard of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance? Bone Emperor asked directly. Jian Wushuang was shocked. Of course, he had heard of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance. He had also heard of the existence of the Heaven-Cleaving Union through Saint Crimson Rock. Saint Crimson Rock had given him a Heaven-Cleaving token back then. Now, the Bone Emperor had mentioned the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance to him. You should know about it. If I'm not mistaken, it must have been the Crimson Rock Saint who told you about it, right? Bone Emperor looked at Jian Wushuang. How do you know about it, Bone Emperor? Jian Wushuang frowned. Of course, I knew it long ago. Not only does Crimson Rock have a heaven-sealing map scroll, but he also obtained a heaven-cleaving token by chance. Because he came to me with this token, he wanted to give it to me in exchange for what he needed. Unfortunately, I didn't agree, Bone Emperor said. Why? Is it because Saint Crimson Rock's requirements are too high, or are you not interested in the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance, Lord Bone Emperor? Jian Wushuang asked. The Heaven-Cleaving Alliance was a giant. Although the conditions for joining were extremely harsh, it would definitely bring many benefits. In the Divine Beginning realm, many powerful experts yearned to join the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance. However, Lord Bone Emperor was so powerful that if he could get a Heaven-Cleaving token, he could definitely try to enter the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance. After hearing Jian Wushuang's words, the Bone Emperor gave a mischievous smile. It's not that Saint Crimson Rock is too demanding, nor that I'm not interested in the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance. It's because when Saint Crimson Rock gave me the Heaven-Cleaving token, I was already an Earth-level member of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance. What? Jian Wushuang was shocked, but then he understood. No wonder the Bone Emperor rejected Saint Crimson Rock. It turned out that he had been a member of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance for a long time. Since he had joined the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance, why did he need the Heaven-Cleaving token? The Heaven-Cleaving Alliance is indeed an unfathomable force. Its strength is far beyond the imagination of ordinary experts. Even now, I only have a glimpse of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance. But one thing is that after joining the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance, I have indeed gained great benefits. Even if I can perfectly control the immortal body and impress the current level, it has something to do with the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance. Bone Emperor sighed. Jian Wushuang narrowed his eyes. He yearned for the mysterious and powerful Heaven-Cleaving Alliance. Jian Yi, do you also have the Heaven-Cleaving token? Bone Emperor asked. Yes, I do. Jian Wushuang did not deny it. The Bone Emperor smiled. Saint Crimson Rock should have told you about the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance. You are very talented, and you have the Heaven-Cleaving token. If you want to join the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance, it should be easy. It should be difficult for you to pass the test. Maybe. Jian Wushuang nodded slightly. He had heard from Saint Crimson Rock that the minimum requirement of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance was Divine Master. Moreover, it was an invincible Divine Master who was extremely strong and had already reached the top. In other words, Invincible Divine Master was only qualified to accept the assessment, but whether he could pass the assessment and become a member of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance was still uncertain. However, with his strength, if he accepted the assessment as the Invincible Divine Master, he would have at least a 90% chance of making a breakthrough. After all, he could kill the immortal saint directly. If such a heaven-defying Divine Master could not pass the assessment, who else could? Jian Yi, I want to know, will you use the Heaven-Cleaving token to participate in the assessment of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance in the future? Bone Emperor asked. Yes. Jian Wushuang nodded decisively. Then he looked at the Bone Emperor and asked, Lord Bone Emperor, is your condition related to the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance? Yes. The Bone Emperor nodded with a smile on his face. My condition is actually very simple. When you accept the assessment, you must admit that you were recommended by me to the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance. That simple? Jian Wushuang was stunned. Just admit that you were recommended by the Bone Emperor, and that was it. The Bone Emperor's condition was indeed a little too simple. Lord Bone Emperor, as a member of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance, do you also receive rewards for introducing a new member of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance? Jian Wushuang asked. Chapter 2900. Rewards. Of course, there are rewards. Moreover, there are quite a lot of rewards, the Bone Emperor explained with a smile. There are a total of 3 ways to obtain benefits in the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance. The first one is to carry out the different levels of missions issued by the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance. Most of these missions are richly rewarded. These rewards are far more than the rewards given by some of the employment organizations in the absolute beginning divine realm. Unfortunately, however, most of these missions are incomparably difficult. Moreover, the chances of failure or even death are extremely high. I have been an Earth-level member of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance for a long time, but I have only accepted 3 Earth-level missions in the past few years. Each of these 3 Earth-level missions required me to go through life and death, and I was lucky enough to complete 2 of them. As for the 3rd mission, I didn't complete it at all, but I was lucky enough to save my life. However, because of the lingering fear, I haven't accepted any Earth-level missions until now. Hearing this, Jian Wushuang nodded secretly. To get a sufficient reward, he had to pay more. Since the rewards of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance's missions were so great, the difficulty was naturally higher. The second way to get benefits depends on luck. The Bone Emperor smiled slightly. The Divine Beginning Realm is very big and vast, far beyond our imagination. As one of the most mysterious alliances in the Divine Beginning Realm, the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance also has various conflicts of interests. Moreover, the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance often encounters some unexpected incidents. Once there are unexpected incidents, the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance can't mobilize other experts to rush over in a short time, so they can only send nearby Heaven-Cleaving Alliance members. In such an emergency, the members who are temporarily dispatched will receive more benefits than those who complete difficult tasks. If they are lucky, such an emergency can be easily solved without too much trouble. Many members of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance know about this, so they hope that an emergency will occur in their territory and the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance will take the initiative to find them. There is a rumor in the outside world that the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance can gather at least 3 immortal saints in any territory or corner of the Divine Beginning world as long as the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance gives the order. It's true. Jian Wushuang was secretly amazed. The absolute beginning divine realm was vast and had countless territories. The Golden Crow 9 realms was probably just a drop in the ocean compared to the entire beginning divine realm. However, in so many territories, the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance was able to take care of at least 3 immortal saints in the shortest time in any corner. This ability was probably unparalleled in the entire absolute beginning divine realm. However, the reason why the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance was able to make these immortal saints arrive at the fastest time was that they had paid a huge price. Other than these 2 channels, there is one last way to obtain benefits from the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance. That is to introduce other experts to join the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance. As long as this person passes the test of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance and becomes a member of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance, the person who introduces him will receive a certain reward. This is the safest way. You don't have to take any risks. As long as you have a unique vision and the person who recommended you is really capable, it will be fine, the Bone Emperor said. This method is indeed weak, but if you only recommended one person to join the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance, the reward should not be too much. How can it be worth a heaven-sealing painting scroll? Jian Wushuang asked. Haha, if it's just an ordinary genius, it's not worth it, but you are different. The Bone Emperor smiled. Jian Yi, you may not know this, but there are different levels of members of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance. First, there are the most common members. These ordinary members are almost made up of invincible divine masters who have passed the assessment, including some immortal saints who are of average strength. Second, there are Earth-rank members. Like me, I am an Earth-rank member of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance. In the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance, Earth-rank members are very common, but they more or less have a certain level of strength. Above the Earth rank is the Heaven rank. Cultivators at this level almost all have an immortal body, and they have special methods. They are very powerful immortal saints. Even I am unable to reach this level now. After all, I have only completed 2 Earth-rank missions alone. Only after I have completed all 3 Earth-rank missions can I truly become a Heaven-rank member. Above the Heaven rank, there is the Emperor rank. The Emperor rank members are made up of a group of top experts. Most of them are top-notch immortal saints, and some of them are invincible among the immortal saints. It is said that there are even a few rule masters who are also Emperor rank members. At this level, they are also true experts in the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance and can definitely command a side. However, whether it's the Earth, Heaven, or Emperor level, they are just the periphery of the Heaven-Cleaving Union. The Heaven-Cleaving Alliance has no restrictions on them. They are completely free regardless of their strength. However, it is rumored that there is a primitive level above the Emperor level, which is the true core level of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance. Any one of them has the strength and means to destroy the world, and because of the existence of a group of primitive experts, the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance is so powerful in the divine beginning world. Jian Wushuang listened carefully. Although he had heard Saint Crimson Rock mention the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance, he did not know much about it. As a member of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance, the Bone Emperor knew more about it. Jian Wushuang did not know about the ordinary, Earth, Heaven, Emperor, and core primitive level. He did not know about it until Bone Emperor said so. Jian Yi, you are only a divine master now. If you use the Heaven-Cleaving token to participate in the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance's assessment, even if you pass the assessment, you will only be an ordinary member of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance. Such a reward is indeed not much. It is not worth exchanging a heaven-sealing scroll for. But what I value is your great potential. Bone Emperor looked at Jian Wushuang. In the Dragon Phoenix Sacred City, I saw the battle between you and the 3 Realm Masters. Your ability, your swordsmanship, and even your treasures far exceed that of a divine master. Such strength is more than enough for you to become an ordinary member of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance. If you are lucky, you can become an Earth-level member of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance at the Divine Master level. Once you become an Earth-rank member, the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance will reward me even more. In other words, the higher your rank is in the future, the more benefits I will get. Chapter 2901, 3 Heaven-Sealing Paintings. Jian Yi, I have high hopes for you. With your strength, as long as you break through to become an undying sage in the future, becoming a Heaven-grade member is almost guaranteed. As for becoming an Emperor-grade member, you also have a high chance of becoming one. Even the legendary Primordial grade, which belongs to the core of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance, you still have some hope. For me, as long as you can become a Heaven-level member, the reward given by the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance is probably more valuable than a Heaven-Sealing painting scroll. If you become an Emperor-level member, I will get more benefits. Because of this, I am willing to give you the Heaven-Sealing painting scroll. I only hope that you can accept the test of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance in the name of my recommendation, the Bone Emperor said. Is that so? Jian Wushuang understood. He also completely understood the Bone Emperor's purpose. To put it bluntly, this Bone Emperor was also for profit. He valued his talent and believed that he could become a heaven-level member, or even an emperor-level member, or even a legendary original-level member in the future. Of course, by then, he would be able to obtain even greater benefits. That was why he was willing to take out the heaven-sealing painting scroll to borrow his name. Jian Yi, this is a piece of cake for you, but it's very important to me. Are you willing to accept it? The Bone Emperor looked at him. Okay, I'll accept it. Jian Wushuang nodded directly. He did not hesitate at all, and there was indeed nothing to hesitate about. It was just a name. It did not matter to him whether there was a referral or not. However, since the referral would benefit the Bone Emperor greatly and the Bone Emperor had offered the seal the Heaven Scroll as a reward, he would naturally give the Bone Emperor face. Moreover, the seal the Heaven Scroll in the Bone Emperor's hand promised him. Haha, that's great. Seeing Jian Wushuang agree, the Bone Emperor immediately smiled. He waved his hand and immediately threw the ancient scroll toward Jian Wushuang. You're giving me the scroll of heaven sealing painting now. Aren't you worried that I'll go back on my word? Jian Wushuang took the scroll and looked at the Bone Emperor in surprise. Of course not. I believe you won't offend me for something that's easy for you, the Bone Emperor said with a cold laugh. Indeed. Jian Wushuang nodded. Jian Yi, since you've received my seal the Heaven Painting Scroll, the agreement between us will be fulfilled. But when will you accept the test of the Heaven Cleaving Alliance? The Bone Emperor asked. No rush. Jian Wushuang waved his hand. I have an even more important matter to deal with in the Golden Crow 9 realms. I'll go to the Heaven Cleaving Alliance after I've dealt with this matter and have a real result. There's nothing to be reluctant about in the Golden Crow 9 realms. Well, as soon as possible. I can see that your aura is extremely powerful. It's at the pinnacle of the Divine Master level. You'd better pass the Heaven Slaying Alliances test before you break through to the Immortal Saint level. It'll be easier this way. If you pass the test after you break through to the Immortal Saint level, your test will be even more difficult, the Bone Emperor said. I understand. Jian Wushuang nodded slightly. This is my message token. When you decide to accept the Heaven Cleaving Alliances test, send a message to me. I will arrange it for you, the Bone Emperor said. Jian Wushuang took the message token and nodded slightly. Lord Bone Emperor, I wonder if the Heavenly Curve World. The Bone Emperor smiled strangely. You killed the Lord of Heavenly Curve World. It's your own ability to replace him. Who dares to gossip in the Golden Crow 9 realms? As for the agreement between me and the other forces, it only stipulates that masters and saints of one world are not allowed to enter other realms to participate in the competition. However, this agreement doesn't restrict divine masters. Whatever you want to do is your business. I won't interfere, the Bone Emperor said. In that case, thank you, Lord Bone Emperor, Jian Wushuang said gratefully, then turned around and left. After leaving the Bone Emperor castle, Jian Wushuang did not leave the Bone Emperor realm immediately. Instead, he found a remote place in the Bone Emperor realm and opened an independent cave mansion. In the cave mansion, Jian Wushuang sat cross-legged with excitement and anticipation in his eyes. In front of him, 3 ancient scrolls that looked and had the same aura were floating quietly. These 3 scrolls were all heaven-sealing scrolls. Bone Emperor knows that I once obtained a heaven-sealing scroll from Saint Crimson Rock, but he doesn't know that I found the second heaven-sealing scroll a long time ago. In addition to the one he gave me, I now have 3 heaven-sealing scrolls in my hand. 3. Jian Wushuang clenched his fists. There were rumors about the heaven-sealing painting scroll in the absolute beginning divine realm. As long as he could gather 3 heaven-sealing painting scrolls at the same time, he would be able to obtain an extraordinary opportunity. This rumor had always been just a rumor. No one knew whether it was true or not. After all, the absolute beginning divine realm was too big, and there were only dozens of heaven-sealing painting scrolls. Moreover, they had been scattered a long time ago. They were scattered in every corner of every territory. It was impossible for others to find one, but it was difficult to find 3 at once. However, Jian Wushuang had found them now. I don't know whether the rumor is true or not. I hope it's true, But I don't know what kind of opportunity one can get from the 3 heaven-sealing painting scrolls, Jian Wushuang murmured. On the other hand, he had already opened the 3 heaven-sealing paintings. The 3 heaven-sealing paintings were exactly the same. Not only did they look the same, but what was recorded in the paintings was also the same. It was a vast and boundless dark starry sky. The dark starry sky contained endless mysteries of heaven and earth. For a long time, Jian Wushuang had relied on those mysteries to cultivate. Now, as the 3 heaven-sealing scrolls were opened at the same time, a strange phenomenon immediately arose. The 3 heaven-sealing scrolls emitted a bright light, which was extremely dazzling and contained an extremely ancient aura. Jian Wushuang sat there with his legs crossed. He did not move, nor did he have any guidance. However, the 3 heaven-sealing scrolls in front of him had already begun to close up. Soon, Jian Wushuang found that the 3 heaven-sealing painting scrolls were merging with each other. Yes, merging. Each of the 3 heaven-sealing painting scrolls was a vast and boundless dark void. But now, the 3 heaven-sealing painting scrolls had naturally merged into a new painting scroll. A strange power was immediately guided over. Chapter 2902, Divine Palace of Heaven and Earth. In the cave mansion, Jian Wushuang was still sitting cross-legged, but with the guidance of the power. Jian Wushuang felt that the scene in front of him immediately began to change. Heaven and earth changed, and in the blink of an eye, Jian Wushuang had arrived in a hazy void. This void was surrounded by countless strange air currents. Each of these air currents contained extremely pure power. If Jian Wushuang was not mistaken, this air current was the qi of chaos. This feeling, Jian Wushuang's expression changed slightly. He had encountered the same thing before. They were both sitting cross-legged, but they were all brought to a special space because of a treasure. Last time, he had obtained a mysterious golden stone, which led him to a huge temple gate, which led to the space-time temple gate. After crossing the gate, Jian Wushuang learned the space-time divine skill there. For example, the heaven designating skill was the first move of the space-time divine skill. Since he had mastered this move, it had helped him countless times. And now, the same heaven and earth transformation was happening. The only difference was that the heaven-sealing painting had brought him to this primal chaos void. What appeared in front of him was a majestic and beautiful divine palace. This divine palace was resplendent, and its size was incomparably huge. It was extremely majestic. Above the door of the divine palace, there were 3 words heaven and earth on the plaque. These 2 words were extremely mysterious. The sky was white, and the earth was black. Heaven and earth. What a domineering word. The sky is white, the earth is black, and it also represents yin and yang. Moreover, these 2 words clearly contain a special magic power. I'm too weak to sense anything, but if some truly top-notch existences were here, I'm afraid they would be able to see many things from these 2 words. Jian Wushuang exclaimed. After a while, he slowly walked toward the divine palace. When he reached the gate of the divine palace, the gate in front of him opened, revealing a grey void. Without hesitation, Jian Wushuang continued to step through the gate. He stepped into the divine palace. Once he entered the divine palace of heaven and earth, the gate closed again. Jian Wushuang was completely in a grey void. There was no material existence in this void, and even soul power was completely isolated. Jian Wushuang had no idea what was in this place. But at this moment, a mere divine master could get 3 heaven-sealing maps to come to the divine palace of heaven and earth. Kid, you're really lucky. An old voice suddenly sounded from all directions. Jian Wushuang could not tell which direction it came from. Who is it? Jian Wushuang immediately looked around, but he did not see anyone. Kid, listen, I am the spirit of the divine palace. According to the rules, since you have found 3 heaven-sealing maps and come to the divine palace, you can sleep in the divine palace for a year. After a year, you can leave, the old voice said. Sleep for a year? Jian Wushuang was stunned. This was the opportunity in the divine palace. Kid, you don't need to know too much. Just follow the rules. Now, you'd better go to sleep, the old voice said. However, The voice came toward Zhen Wushuang with an extraordinary power. Hearing the voice, Zhen Wushuang immediately fell asleep. How could it be? Zhen Wushuang was shocked. He did not know what kind of power was contained in the old voice. Yet, even with his state of mind, he could not resist it. But soon, Zhen Wushuang's consciousness fell into a deep sleep. Zhen Wushuang fell asleep. However, in his deep sleep, even he did not know that his comprehension of the two rules of spacetime and reincarnation had begun to accelerate. This comprehension speed was much faster than when he calmed his mind and used the two heaven-sealing scrolls to comprehend. It was even incomparable. The point was that this kind of comprehension was carried out naturally and could not be stopped by external forces. Zhen Wushuang's consciousness was completely asleep, so he did not know this at all. It should be known that Zhen Wushuang's comprehension of spacetime rules and reincarnation had reached the limit of Divine Master. But, on the other hand, he was also infinitely close to the level of Immortal Saint and even half a step away. Now, in his deep sleep, his comprehension of the spacetime rule and the samsara rule was much faster than usual. With this comprehension, his comprehension of the two rules gradually approached the level of the Immortal Saint. Time gradually passed. Zhen Wushuang fell into a deep sleep and did not know how much time had passed in the outside world. Finally, "It's time, wake up." The old voice spoke again, still coming from all directions. The voice was like a bolt from the blue, instantly waking up Zhen Wushuang, who had fallen into a deep sleep. Zhen Wushuang suddenly opened his eyes. When Zhen Wushuang woke up, he was still a little confused and had not completely understood the situation in front of him. But when he saw the grey void around him clearly, he immediately understood. "I should have fallen asleep just now. How long did I sleep?" "A year." Zhen Wushuang frowned. "Baby, you seem to be very talented. You must have made a lot of progress during the year you slept. Take a good look." The old voice sounded again. Zhen Wushuang immediately began to investigate his changes. His pupils suddenly shrank. "Rules, the rules I've comprehended." Zhen Wushuang's body trembled. He raised his right hand, and a large amount of the power of the rules of time and space gathered in his hand. Then he waved his hand. Whoosh! Immediately, nearly 400 powerful spacetime blades swept out. Each of these spacetime blades was extremely sharp and contained an astonishing killing power. Nearly 400, this is the level of an immortal saint. My comprehension of the spacetime rule has broken through. Zhen Wushuang was stunned, but he quickly understood. The Divine Palace of Heaven and Earth is the opportunity contained in the Divine Palace of Heaven and Earth. It was a great opportunity that I obtained during the year I was asleep that allowed me to directly break through my comprehension of the space-time rule and truly reach the level of the Immortal Saint. Moreover, not only the space-time rule but also the reincarnation rule seems to be the same. Zhen Wushuang's eyes were shining brightly. After making clear his current comprehension of the space-time rule, he began to try to condense the power of the reincarnation rule. Chapter 2903, Storm. As expected, his comprehension of the reincarnation rules had also reached the level of the Immortal Saint. In just 1 year, my comprehension of the space-time and reincarnation rules has broken through. Zhen Wushuang was a little confused and in disbelief. At this time, the old voice sounded again. You only have 3 heaven-sealing painting scrolls and can only stay in the Divine Palace for a year. But if you have the chance to get more heaven-sealing painting scrolls in the future, such as 6, you will have a greater opportunity. Zhen Wushuang smiled bitterly. It was hard to get even 1 heaven-sealing painting scroll. He was lucky to be able to get 3. As for finding another way to get 3 or 6 of them, it was probably just wishful thinking. However, the 3 heaven-sealing painting scrolls alone were enough for him to get a great opportunity. Baby, leave. The old voice continued to spread, and the time around Zhen Wushuang began to collapse. In the blink of an eye, Zhen Wushuang had escaped from the Divine Palace of Heaven and Earth. Zhen Wushuang was still sitting cross-legged in the cave mansion, but his eyes were wide open. Phew! Zhen Wushuang exhaled, but his face was full of surprise and joy. I've long heard that you can get a great opportunity by gathering 3 heaven-sealing painting scrolls. Now it seems that it's true. Jian Wushuang sighed. My comprehension of the space-time rule and the samsara rule has already reached a bottleneck. I thought that it would take some time before I could break through the two rules. I didn't expect that this opportunity would allow me to break through both rules, and my strength would soar. The strength of the comprehension of rules was crucial to a cultivator. Among the factors that determined the strength of a cultivator, rule comprehension was a very important factor. Previously, whether Jian Wushuang fought with the Black Blood Emperor, who had reached the second stage of Invincible Divine Master, or when he fought with immortal saints such as Realm Lord Tian Chu, he relied on his powerful divine power and his comprehension of sword principle. He also knew all kinds of methods and secret skills. But in terms of rule comprehension, he was always at a disadvantage. This disadvantage was huge. For example, the Black Blood Emperor's comprehension of rules was at the immortal saint level, but Jian Wushuang could not reach it. But now, he had finally reached this step, which meant that he could use more rule power, display more powerful swordsmanship and some skills, and his battle strength would certainly increase. In addition, there was another point, which was in the aspect of absolute arts. In the aspect of absolute arts, I have now broken through the 8th move of the space-time sword art, 1000 square-shaped light. This move is only an ultimate skill at the level of a divine master. Moreover, it's not the best among the ultimate skills at the level of a divine master. For me now, this move is far from enough. Jian Wushuang thought. The ultimate move that he created was a great killing weapon in his hands, and it was also very important. When two cultivators were fighting, many times, the ultimate move that he created could decide the outcome or even life and death in the end. As for the ultimate move, after Jian Wushuang made a breakthrough in his sword principle and nurtured the boundless sword tree, he wanted to try to create a stronger ultimate move, but unfortunately, his comprehension of the rules was too weak, which made him feel powerless to attack. But now, it was different. Now, my comprehension of the space-time rules and the samsara rules has reached the level of the immortal saint. The samsara sword formation exists in the samsara rules. If I use the immortal saint's comprehension of the rules to perform the samsara sword formation, I should be able to barely perform the 4th samsara sword formation. I don't need to worry about the samsara rules for now, but in terms of the space-time rules, I urgently need to create the 9th move of the space-time sword art. This move must be an absolute art at the level of a saint, and its power must not be too low. Jian Wushuang thought to himself. After making the decision, Jian Wushuang did not delay any further. He began to try to create new swordsmanship in the cave mansion. An absolute art at the saint level could only be created by reaching the immortal saint level in the comprehension of sword principle and rules. Jian Wushuang had already reached these two requirements. Most importantly, his comprehension was very high. With his current ability, it was indeed not difficult for him to create a new sword art. Time passed, and in the blink of an eye, another year and 4 months had passed. During this year and 4 months, Jian Wushuang was completely immersed in the study and innovation of sword art. Until now, there was finally a result. In the middle of a vast and desolate world, Jian Wushuang stood there like a statue. He held the Blood Mountain sword tightly in his hand, and his eyes were slightly closed. It was calm. But suddenly, Jian Wushuang opened his eyes. The moment he opened them, a fierce light immediately burst out. A shocking and murderous sword essence directly burst out from Jian Wushuang's body. This sword essence did not burst out because Jian Wushuang guided the supreme sword essence in the Blood Mountain sword. It was just Jian Wushuang's own sword essence. But with his current cultivation of sword principle, the sword essence that burst out with all his strength was also extremely powerful. The sword essence was like a domain, sweeping toward the void in front of him in all directions. And in the center of this world, Jian Wushuang, who stood there like a statue, finally drew his sword. He held the sword with one hand and slowly raised it. Then, he drew a line. This line seemed to be an easy one, but in fact, the moment he drew it, Jian Wushuang's own sword essence and the power of the infinite sword tree in his body had been exerted to the extreme. Buzz, buzz, buzz. A large number of space-time rules condensed with the sword essence, time and space blades condensed one after another. There were more than 400 densely packed time and space blades, and these time and space blades had completely fused with the sword essence. The space-time rules and sword skills were perfectly combined. Boom! A fierce wind suddenly swept up between heaven and earth. A huge storm rose out of thin air in the void where Jian Wushuang's sword essence was directed. This storm contained more than 400 space-time blades and endless shocking sword essence. It was terrifying. As the storm swept away, everything was crushed to pieces. Jian Wushuang was still standing in the void, staring at the wanton storm ahead. Although a certain distance separated them, Jian Wushuang could still feel that the power of the storm was terrifying. He could guarantee that even if some ordinary immortal saints were caught in the storm, they would be crushed by the storm in an instant if their protective abilities were mediocre. And the name of this sword was Storm. Chapter 2904. Paying a visit. This move of mine is quite powerful among the absolute arts at the saint level. If I use it with all my strength, its power will be even more terrifying. It should be enough for me to use in a short time. Jian Wushuang thought. Thus, the 9th move of the spacetime swordsmanship, Storm, was born. My strength has reached a peak in a short period of time. If I want to improve further, I have to find a way to get a large number of sacred elixirs to break through to the peak Great Divine Master level. However, I need too many sacred elixirs to break through in a short period of time. However, even if I haven't broken through to the peak Great Divine Master level, my battle strength is still much stronger than before. In the entire 9 realms of the Golden Crow, there should be no one who is my match except for the Supreme Lord Bone Emperor. With such strength in hand, I can handle everything. Next, it's time for me to visit the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion. Jian Wushuang's eyes sparkled. While he was sleeping in the Divine Palace of Heaven and Earth, the Sword Alliance had begun to move toward the Heavenly Curve world. Now that they had arrived in the Heavenly Curve world and had completely stabilized, the Sword Alliance had become the new overlord of the Heavenly Curve world. Now that the Sword Alliance had settled down, he had nothing to worry about. There was only one reason for him to stay in the Golden Crow 9 world, and that was Lung Rushuang. Through the spatial passage, Jian Wushuang soon arrived at the Dragon Phoenix Sacred City and arrived at the mountain gate of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion again. Whoosh! Jian Wushuang landed directly in front of the mountain gate. Several experts of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion guarding the mountain gate immediately surrounded Jian Wushuang. "Who are you?" one of them asked in a deep voice. "Please go in and tell them that Jian Yi, the master of Heavenly Curve World, is here to pay a visit," Jian Wushuang said indifferently. Jian Yi. When the experts of Dragon Phoenix Pavilion heard the name, their expressions changed, and 2 of them were trembling with fear. Their attitude immediately became respectful and humble. "Lord, please wait for a moment. I will immediately report this." A violet-robed lady immediately went in to report. Within the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion, the current pavilion master of the pavilion, Long Xingzi, was currently sitting cross-legged, discussing with a red-haired old man. At this moment, an upper echelon of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion walked in and respectfully reported, "Pavilion Master, there's a person outside. He calls himself the Tianchu Realm Lord, Jian Yi, and is here to pay a visit." Jian Yi. Long Xingzi was stunned. "It's that Jian Yi who killed the original Tianchu Realm Lord, Elder Su?" The red-haired old man revealed an astonished expression. "It should be him. After the original Tianchu Realm Lord died, Jian Yi used lightning techniques to occupy the Tianchu realm. Right now, he's the most respected person in the Tianchu realm. I wonder why Jian Yi came to our Dragon Phoenix Pavilion? And it has to be at this time." Long Xingzi frowned. "No matter what, he is a guest. Furthermore, Jian Yi didn't have any enmity with our Dragon Phoenix Pavilion. Since he came to visit us personally, our Dragon Phoenix Pavilion naturally has to treat him with respect. How about this? I will personally receive him and ask him why he is here. If it's possible, I will send him away," the red-haired old man said. "Okay, you can go." Long Xingzi nodded slightly. Jian Wushuang stood in front of the gate of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion and waited quietly. The cultivators of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion looked at him in awe. Jian Wushuang was now very famous in the 9 realms of the Golden Crow. He was a supreme genius who could easily kill an immortal saint as a divine master. The Dragon Phoenix Pavilion was known as the #1 genius concentration camp in the 9 realms of the Golden Crow. However, no one in the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion, except for the young phoenix, could compare to Jian Wushuang. Whoosh! The red-haired elder rushed over from afar and soon appeared in front of Jian Wushuang. "Ha, Mr. Jian, ye actually came to visit the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion in person. It's a great honor for the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion," the red-haired elder said with a smile. He first complimented Jian Wushuang and then introduced himself, Chu Yong, an elder of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion. "Elder Chu Yong." Jian Wushuang nodded slightly. Jian Wushuang had heard of Elder Chu Yong. Among the 3 known immortal saints of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion, Chu Yong was one of them. Moreover, Chu Yong's strength was quite impressive among the immortal saints. He should not be weaker than the master of the heavenly curve world who was killed by Jian Wushuang. "My pavilion master has something important to deal with today, so he can't come to greet you personally. So I have to do it for you. Mr. Jian Yi, please come in," Chu Yong said with a smile. Jian Wushuang did not hesitate and followed Chu Yong to the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion. It was his second time in the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion, so he was not unfamiliar with the environment here. Under the guidance of Chu Yong, Jian Wushuang soon arrived at a magnificent hall. Chu Yong ordered people to serve good wine and food, and then the two began to talk. "Mr. Jian Yi, what brings you to our Dragon Phoenix Pavilion today?" Chu Yong asked directly. "I'm here to greet you all. I'm now the new realm master of the Heavenly Curve world, and the Heavenly Curve world is one of the most powerful realms in the 9 realms of the Golden Crow. As a realm master, I will certainly have dealings with the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion in the future. If anything happens, I hope you can give me some face and be lenient," Jian Wushuang said. "That's easy." Chu Yong smiled. "Although the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion is one of the 4 pavilions, we have never had any conflict of interest with the Heavenly Curve world. In the future, even if there is, we will take the initiative to negotiate with you, Mr. Jian Yi. After all, anything can be discussed." "Thank you." Jian Wushuang smiled. "In addition, there is another thing. When the Dragon Phoenix list was opened last time, experts from all forces were invited to Dragon Phoenix Pavilion to attend the ceremony. I was there and I saw the young phoenix. To be honest, I was tempted by the young phoenix at first sight. However, I couldn't say anything in front of so many people. This time, I came to visit because I want to see the young phoenix again and have a good talk with her. Is that possible? Mr. Jian Yi wants to see Xiaofeng?" Chu Yong looked at Jian Wushuang in astonishment. He did not expect Jian Wushuang to come here especially for Xiaofeng. He admitted that Xiaofeng's beauty and temperament were unparalleled in the 9 realms of the Golden Crow. However, she had reached the level of the immortal saint, so she should be able to resist her beauty. However, looking at Jian Wushuang, he seemed to have been completely captivated by young phoenix. Chapter 2905, Goodbye, Lung Wushuang. In the main hall, Chu Yong was silent for a moment before he spoke. "Mr. Jian Yi, although young phoenix is only a disciple of our Dragon Phoenix Pavilion, she is very special in our pavilion and her status is extremely high. Although I am an elder of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion, I have no way of instructing her to do anything and I have no way of getting her to meet you. But since you are so eager to meet me, I can ask Elder Qin to send a message to Xiaofeng for you. If she agrees to meet you, then it will be easy. But if she doesn't agree, then I have no choice. In that case, I will have to trouble Elder Chu Yong to send a message for me," Jian Wushuang said. "Sure, but I have to ask you to wait here for a while," Chu Yong said with a faint smile, then left the palace to send a message. Jian Wushuang stayed in the hall and waited quietly. In an inconspicuous corner of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion, although it was inconspicuous, many proud sons of heaven of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion were lingering here. They stopped here because this corner was where the young phoenix of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion lived. It was a wonderful manor with a vast atmosphere. The red-haired older man, Chu Yong, came to the void outside the manor. Then, he slightly revealed his divine power aura. Swoosh! A figure rushed out of the manor. It was the master of the young phoenix and the second known immortal saint of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion, Elder Qin. Chu Yong, the people over there shouldn't have arrived so soon. So why are you here now? Elder Qin asked. That Jian Yi is here. Chu Yong replied. Jian Yi? Elder Qin's expression changed as he frowned. Why is he here? On the surface, he said that he just became the realm lord of the heavenly curve world not long ago and came to greet our Dragon Phoenix Pavilion. First, however, he requested to meet with the young phoenix. Chu Yong said. He wants to meet Leng Er? Elder Qin's expression turned cold. Chu Yong, you should know what will happen today. At this time, how can Leng Er meet outsiders? Of course I know. However, Jian Yi's strength isn't weak, and his talent is extremely high. Now that he has become the realm lord of the heavenly curve world, it's inevitable for him to interact with our Dragon Phoenix Pavilion in the future. Now that he has personally come to pay a visit, I have no choice but to give him some face. However, I disagreed with it directly. Instead, I said that I would pass on a message to him. If the young phoenix is willing to meet him, I'll meet him. If she disagrees, there's nothing I can do. Chu Yong spoke. Is that so? Elder Qin mused for a moment before he said, in that case, wait here. I will go and ask Leng Er. Elder Qin turned around and walked into the manor. In an exquisite pavilion in the middle of the manor, a peerless beauty was seated. In her hand, she was flipping through a jade slip. Leng Er. Elder Qin walked in. Master, is Elder Chu Yong looking for you? Leng Rushuang asked. It's a person called Jian Yi who is currently in the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion. He wants to see you. So Elder Chu Yong came over to ask if you would like to see him, Elder Qin said. Jian Yi? Leng Rushuang was puzzled. Who is that? That's the person who appeared in front of you when the Dragon Phoenix list was opened, and you took the initiative to ask for his name, Elder Qin said. It's him. Leng Rushuang's expression changed, and she stopped what she was doing. A sentence immediately came to her mind. In my previous life, I chased after you for 100,000 years. My heart was broken, and I missed you. Then, I entered the reincarnation with you. In this life, I promise you 100 million years, and we will be together until death. So when we meet today, you will be my companion, and we will be proud of each other. The name of that person was Jian Wushuang. Leng Rushuang had a deep impression of Jian Wushuang. Because the name Jian Wushuang was very familiar to her. And the words that Jian Wushuang gave her also touched her heart. Leng Er, if you don't want to meet Jian Yi, I will directly refuse for you, Elder Qin said. Let him come over, Leng Rushuang said. Elder Qin was shocked. Young Phoenix was famous in the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion and the entire 9 realms of the Golden Crow. Like her master, she knew everything. Many people wanted to see young Phoenix, including some proud sons of heaven, some people with noble statuses, and even some experts. She rejected them without even thinking. But now, Jian Yi came to ask for an audience, and she agreed. Leng Er, this is the first time she agreed to someone else's request, right? Elder Qin sighed in her heart, but she had already sent a message to Chu Yong outside the manor, asking him to bring Jian Yi over. Soon, Jian Yi was led by Chu Yong to the outside of the manor. And Elder Qin was already waiting there. Jian Yi. Elder Qin glanced at Jian Wushuang with a strange expression. Jian Yi greets Elder Qin, Jian Wushuang said humbly. His humility came from the bottom of his heart. No matter what, Elder Qin was Leng Rushuang's master. For the sake of Leng Rushuang, Jian Wushuang naturally had to be humble. Mr. Jian Yi, you are too kind. Leng Er is already waiting at the stone table in the manor, Elder Qin said. Thank you. Jian Wushuang smiled gratefully and then went straight to the manor. Elder Qin followed him immediately. After entering the manor, Jian Wushuang soon saw Leng Rushuang. The latter was sitting at the table, very quiet. Elder Qin, I want to talk to Miss Leng Er alone. Is that okay? Jian Wushuang asked. Mr. Jian Yi, your request is a bit too much. Elder Qin frowned. Master, you go outside first. I also want to ask him some questions alone, Leng Rushuang said. Even Leng Rushuang said so. Although Elder Qin was reluctant, she still turned around and left. But she did not go far. She just watched from the void. After all, Lung Rushuang was too important to the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion. As her master, she had to ensure Lung Rushuang's safety. Seeing Elder Qin leave, Jian Wushuang waved his hand and immediately set up a layer of restriction around him. This restriction layer was only to prevent the conversation between Jian Wushuang and Lung Rushuang from being heard. It did not contain any power, and Elder Qin did not stop it. Only Jian Wushuang and Lung Rushuang were left in the manor, staring at each other from a distance of only a few meters. Jian Wushuang looked at Lung Rushuang with tenderness in his eyes. This tenderness was not an act but a genuine passion and love from the heart. As for Lung Rushuang, she looked at Jian Wushuang with a strange look, but more than that, she was puzzled. The two were completely different. Chapter 2906. It was too late. Who are you? Lung Rushuang asked. It was a simple sentence, but it made Jian Wushuang's heart feel like a knife was cutting it. Shuang you don't remember me at all? Jian Wushuang asked. Lung Rushuang shook her head and said, You call me Shuang and this name is very, very familiar to me, but my name is Lung After a moment of silence, Lung Rushuang said again, Can you tell me about what happened between you and Shuang Jian Wushuang was stunned. He walked up and sat down on the stone bench next to Lung Rushuang. Then he began to talk about it. That was a long time ago. Jian Wushuang told Lung Rushuang about what happened between him and Lung Rushuang. It was the first time they had met in the East. They chatted in the natural residence for a month and played the zither for a month. In the same natural residence, he used his unique cultivation method to help Lung Rushuang transform the icy heart poison in her body. In these 3 encounters, they had already developed feelings for each other. In the green fire world, they were furious at the top of the dynasty. Finally, they became husband and wife. However, not long after they became husband and wife, bad news came. Lung Rushuang's soul was in a deep sleep, while Lung Rushue went far away into the vast eternal chaotic world. After a long 100,000 years of pursuit, they searched for 100,000 years. When they finally found it, both of them only had souls, and then they went to the reincarnation passage together. Jian Wushuang told everything in detail to Lung Lung was fascinated. After half a day, Jian Wushuang finally finished. In my previous life, I pursued you for 100,000 years. My heart was broken, and I missed you. Now, I understand what you mean. Lung murmured and stared at Jian Wushuang. Is this Shuang me? Yes. Jian Wushuang nodded. Lung was silent for a moment, but in the end, she still shook her head. I'm sorry, your person, your name, and the things you said, I feel very familiar, but I can't remember them at all. It doesn't matter. If you can't remember them, then slowly think about them. Before you completely remember them, I will stay in the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion and talk to you every day. Jian Wushuang smiled. No, it's too late. Lung shook her head. Too late. Jian Wushuang was stunned. I don't have so much time to think about it, because I'm going to leave soon. Lung's expression became cold again. Leave? Where? Jian Wushuang asked immediately. A very, very far place. From now on, I won't come back to the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion or even the 9 realms of the Golden Crow. Naturally, I won't see you again, Lung Rushuang said. What? Jian Wushuang's expression suddenly changed. Lung Rushuang was about to leave the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion and the 9 realms of the Golden Crow and go to a very, very far place. Where are you going? Jian Wushuang asked in a deep voice. Lung Rushuang did not answer. She just shook her head slightly and waved her hand, indicating for Elder Qin, who was waiting in the void, to come over. Master, take him away, Lung Rushuang said coldly. Elder Qin nodded and looked at Jian Wushuang. Mr. Jian Yi, let's go. Jian Wushuang's heart was trembling. He looked at Lung Rushuang deeply and found that her expression was getting colder and colder. Jian Wushuang clenched his hands and left, while Lung Rushuang went straight back to her attic. After coming out of the manor, Jian Wushuang's heart was extremely heavy. Mr. Jian Yi, Did you have a good conversation with young Phoenix? Chu Yong walked up to Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang took a deep breath and ignored Chu Yong. Instead, he looked at Elder Qin. Elder Qin, I just heard from young Phoenix that she will leave the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion, the 9 realms of the Golden Crow, and go to a very far place. She will never come back. Is this true? Lung Er told you about it. Elder Qin looked at Jian Wushuang in surprise. Only a few immortal saints in the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion knew that Lung Rushuang was going to leave the pavilion. No one else knew about it, and they had never publicized it. But now, Lung Rushuang told Jian Wushuang about it. Is that true? Jian Wushuang narrowed his eyes and said, Elder Qin, let me tell you where young Phoenix is going and why she is going. Mr. Jian Yi, what you are asking is related to some secrets in the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion. I'm sorry, but I can't answer you. Elder Qin shook his head and said, But what if I have to know? Jian Wushuang stared at Elder Qin coldly. Mr. Jian Yi, this is the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion. You are a guest, so we are willing to entertain you to the best of our ability. At the same time, we hope you can behave like a guest, Elder Qin said in a low voice. Jian Wushuang was very famous in the 9 realms of the Golden Crow. Many experts in the 9 realms of the Golden Crow feared him. The Dragon Phoenix Pavilion did not want to provoke a top expert like Jian Wushuang. But just because they did not want to provoke him, it did not mean that they were afraid of him. Moreover, they were in the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion's lair, so Elder Qin had absolute confidence. Mr. Jian Yi, I hope you can pay attention to your words and identity. Otherwise, I can only forgive the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion for not treating you well. Chu Yong looked over. Really? Jian Wushuang smiled coldly. I'm sorry. Although I don't have any enmity with the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion and I have to pay attention to my identity as a guest this time, I have to know something because of my relationship with Xiaofeng. Since you don't want to talk about it, I have to resort to some means. Jian Yi, what do you want to do? Chu Yong and Elder Qin's eyes turned cold. Elder Qin, you are Xiaofeng's master. No one should know more about her than you do. For her sake, I have to apologize. Jian Wushuang's eyes flashed with a fierce light. Boom! A terrifying divine power suddenly erupted from Jian Wushuang's body. This divine power was so huge that it far exceeded the scope of an ordinary divine master. The moment his divine power erupted, he instantly activated the 7-star secret skill, the divine punishment skill, and the 9 luminaries star armor. The boundless golden divine power was vast and majestic. It formed a 30,000-meter tall Golden Emperor phantom behind Jian Wushuang. The Golden Emperor's eyes were like lightning as he looked down at everything. Then, a surge of astonishing sword essence rose and swept in all directions. Not long after Lung Rushuang lived outside the manor, Jian Wushuang, a guest of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion, was directly attacked. Chapter 2907, Suppression Buzz. Endless sword essence burst out from Jian Wushuang's body, and the Blood Mountain sword appeared in his hand. He casually waved his sword, and in an instant, the majestic sword shadow, together with the great domain of the 9-universe Bloodlight River, crazily pressed down on Elder Qin. What? Elder Qin turned pale with fright. She had never expected that Jian Yi would dare to attack her directly in the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion's lair. This sudden attack was completely beyond her imagination. However, she was a genuine immortal saint, so her reaction speed was extremely fast. She immediately used many protective measures to try to block Jian Wushuang's sword. However, the power of Jian Wushuang's attack was too terrifying. It was beyond his imagination. Splash! The sword shadow passed by, but Elder Qin was not damaged at all. However, the many protective measures on her body had been completely shattered by the sword light. He could have killed me with that attack, but he didn't hurt me at all. He wanted to capture me alive. Elder Qin instantly understood. However, Jian Wushuang had already attacked again. He only pointed his finger at a distance, and the power of the space-time rule burst out instantly. Heaven-fixing skill. This move had little effect on the immortal saint when Jian Wushuang had not made a breakthrough in his comprehension of the space-time rule. However, now that his comprehension of the space-time rule had reached the immortal saint level, the power of this move would be much stronger. Even if Elder Qin was an immortal saint, he could not resist this move. Jian Wushuang immediately stepped forward. "Stop!" Chu Yong finally reacted and shouted. At the same time, his terrifying strength burst out. He held a red long spear in one hand. The long spear pierced through the void and formed a huge pillar of fire, which rushed toward Jian Wushuang. "Get lost!" Jian Wushuang did not even bother to look at Chu Yong. Instead, he slashed out with his sword and instantly activated the power of the boundless sword tree in his body to the maximum. Whoosh! A huge sword light swept out. The sword light, with the majestic power of the rule, hit the fire pillar head-on. The fire pillar was extinguished instantly, and Chu Yong was sent flying at the first moment. He was in an extremely sorry state. Jian Wushuang was not hindered at all. He appeared in front of Elder Qin and swung his Blood Mountain sword again. This time, he did not use his swordsmanship, but the suppressive power of the Blood Mountain sword. The Blood Mountain sword could kill and suppress enemies. It was just that Jian Wushuang rarely used this suppressive skill before. But now, buzz, buzz. The Blood Mountain sword turned into a towering giant mountain, and a huge whirlpool appeared at the bottom of the mountain. The whirlpool crazily swallowed everything. First, under Jian Wushuang's guidance, it directly swallowed Elder Qin, and then the Blood Mountain sword turned into a divine sword again. It returned to Jian Wushuang's hand. It was too fast. Jian Wushuang moved too fast. In just a moment, he sent Chu Yong flying and then suppressed Elder Qin. After doing all this, he looked around. What he was looking at was naturally the manor behind him. In the attic of the manor, Leng Rushuang had also come to the window. Jian Wushuang, Leng Rushuang's eyes were extremely complicated. "I'm sorry." Jian Wushuang and Leng Rushuang looked at each other, but his figure directly rushed toward the void to the side. "Jian Yi, how dare you!" A loud shout suddenly sounded in heaven and earth. It was so loud that it shook the entire Dragon Phoenix Pavilion. Chu Yong was the one who shouted. He had seen Jian Wushuang suppress Elder Qin in front of him, and it was in the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion. The Dragon Phoenix Pavilion was completely shaken. A large number of figures flew up and rushed in the direction of the pavilion. Long Xingzi, the pavilion master of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion, rushed over at once. At the same time, a few hidden experts of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion also rushed over. In the blink of an eye, 3 immortal saints arrived in front of Jian Wushuang. Including Chu Yong, there were 4 of them. In addition, there were many powerful disciples of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion, such as the invincible Divine Master, who was rarely seen in the 9 realms of the Golden Crow. However, there were several in the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion, and they had surrounded Jian Wushuang in just a moment. Of course, this was also because Jian Wushuang did not make a move. Otherwise, it would not be so easy for him to be alone. "Chu Yong, what happened? Where is Elder Qin?" Long Xingzi stared at Chu Yong with a gloomy face. "Pavilion Master, Elder Qin has been suppressed by this Jian Yi," Chu Yong said in a low voice. "What?" Long Xingzi was shocked, but then he flew into a rage. He was not the only one. The other 2 immortal saints and the disciples of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion were all furious. This was the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion. An outsider, Jian Yi, had suppressed an immortal saint-level elder of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion in the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion's lair. He was going to fight with the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion. "Jian Yi, the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion respects your strength and identity. We welcome you and treat you with the utmost care, but now you have suppressed Elder Qin of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion. You are too arrogant." Long Xingzi's voice was cold. "Release Elder Qin quickly and hand over 1,000,000 sacred elixirs to apologize to the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion, or else what?" Jian Wushuang stood alone, facing the countless experts of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion without any fear. Long Xingzi's face changed. Even the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion did not dare to underestimate Jian Wushuang's strength. Therefore, they did not want to offend him unless it was necessary. But now, "Jian Yi, the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion has no enmity with you. So what do you want to do today?" Long Xingzi shouted in a low voice. My goal is simple. I want to know where young Phoenix is going and why she is going there. Besides, when the Dragon Phoenix ranking was released, you placed her name at 3rd place. In other words, her contribution to the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion is ranked in the top 3 among all the predecessors of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion. She is only second to the founder of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion, Ancient Sage, and the 3rd Pavilion Master. However, what contribution did she make to the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion that you would place her in 3rd place? I want to know everything. As long as I know everything, I will let Elder Qin out and guarantee that she won't be hurt. But if you don't tell me, then don't blame me for being rude. Jian Wushuang's expression was solemn and extremely cold. Chapter 2908, Supreme Emotion Valley. Jian Yi, are you threatening the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion? Long Xingzi shouted. Yes, I am, Jian Wushuang admitted directly. He was not afraid of falling out with the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion. Even when he came to the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion, he was already prepared to completely fall out with it. It was because of this that he waited until his strength had once again greatly improved and he had sufficient confidence before he came to the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion to pay a visit. To be so impudent in my Dragon Phoenix Pavilion and even shamelessly threaten my Dragon Phoenix Pavilion, aren't you worried that you won't be able to leave alive today? Long Xingzi said. He, Pavilion Master of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion, you seem to be called Long Xingzi, right? When the Dragon Phoenix ranking was first opened, I carefully looked at it. Your name is on it and you are able to be listed on the Dragon Phoenix ranking. It seems that your methods are still impatient. At the very least, you have made a lot of contributions to the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion. Unfortunately, you have underestimated me. Since I dared to suppress your elders in your Dragon Phoenix Pavilion, I naturally have absolute confidence that I will be able to escape unscathed. If you don't believe me, you can try later, but I won't show any mercy. As for the final result, I can still leave calmly. As for you, I guarantee that more than half of the experts of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion, including many disciples, will die. But, Jian Wushuang said in a deep voice. There was absolute confidence between his brows. Long Xingzi could also see this confidence. However, he could not help frowning. Where did Jian Yi get such confidence from? Although Long Xingzi was full of doubts about Jian Wushuang's words, he did not dare to be careless. After all, this was the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion. There were many disciples here, and each of them was a true god's favored son. Each death was enough to make the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion's heart ache. If they could not control the battle here, the consequences would be unimaginable. Long Xingzi was hesitating. But at this time, Elder Qin, who Jian Wushuang had suppressed in the Blood Mountain Sword, had already broken free from the time-space stagnation. As soon as she broke free, she knew that she had been suppressed. And then she heard the conversation between Jian Wushuang and Long Xingzi in the Blood Mountain Sword. Now she directly shouted, Jian Yi, don't you want to know about Leng Er? Okay, I'll tell you. Jian Wushuang's heart moved, and his consciousness quickly covered the Blood Mountain Sword. Tell me, where is she going? Jian Wushuang asked. Humph, Leng Er is going to Supreme Emotion Valley, Elder Qin answered. Supreme Emotion Valley? Jian Wushuang frowned. I'm afraid you've never heard of this name, right? Elder Qin sneered. Let me tell you, the Supreme Emotion Valley is a sect, and it comes from the vast third heaven. Even in the third heaven, in the core territory of the absolute beginning divine realm, the Supreme Emotion Valley is extremely powerful. A top sect in the third heaven? Jian Wushuang was stunned. The third heaven was the core of the absolute beginning divine realm. The 3 saint realms, the 4 divine clans, and the octagonal heaven sect were the top sects in that territory. The Supreme Emotion Valley was very famous, so even if it did not reach the level of the octagonal heaven sect, it would not be too far off. Shuang Er is going there to cultivate? Jian Wushuang asked. Yes, of course, to cultivate, Elder Qin said in a low voice. The Supreme Emotion Valley is a transcendent sect. It's hundreds, thousands, or even tens of thousands of times stronger than our Dragon Phoenix Pavilion. There are countless cultivation resources there, far beyond what the Golden Crow Nine Realms forces can compare with. Lung Er's talent is extraordinary. Only by going there can she fully display her talent and have more room to grow in the future. Is that so? Jian Wushuang frowned. If what Elder Qin said was true, then it was indeed a good thing for Lung Wushuang to go there, and he had no reason to stop her. But his intuition told him that it was not so simple. Elder Qin, let me ask you again. What kind of sect does the Supreme Emotion Valley belong to? How much do you know? Jian Wushuang asked. How could I know too much about such a super sect? But last time, 2 disciples of the Supreme Emotion Valley came to the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion because of Lung Er. I know something from them. Elder Qin paused for a moment and then said, I heard that the Supreme Emotion Valley has more female disciples than male disciples. Besides, this sect has a special feature, which is that almost all the disciples have no partners. No partner? Jian Wushuang was stunned. Yes, the great oblivion is to forget or even abandon emotions. It is said that there is a divine skill in the valley that can only be cultivated by people who are completely devoid of emotions and have not been touched by the mortal world. In addition, to cultivate this divine skill, one has to be terrifyingly talented. This condition is extremely harsh, and it is impossible for outsiders to achieve. The Supreme Emotion Valley has experienced countless years and has countless talented disciples. However, only 3 people have truly cultivated this secret technique. Moreover, these 3 people are unable to truly cultivate that divine technique to the highest level, the highest level. However, not long ago, the Supreme Emotion Valley found out about Lung Er's existence from God knows where. They personally sent experts to investigate. In the end, they determined that Lung Er is the best candidate to cultivate that divine technique. She has the chance to become the 4th person in the history of the Supreme Emotion Valley to cultivate that divine technique. Therefore, the Supreme Emotion Valley discussed with the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion. In the end, the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion decided to send Lung Er to the Supreme Emotion Valley to cultivate, and the Supreme Emotion Valley gave the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion a lot of resources. The resources were much more than the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion could imagine, and they greatly helped the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion. Because of this, Lung Er was listed as the 3rd on the Dragon Phoenix list. Elder Qin said, completely abandon her emotions? Does that mean that after she cultivates that divine skill, she won't have any feelings anymore? Jian Wushuang asked. Yes. Elder Qin nodded. In fact, Lung Er doesn't have any feelings at all. She's cold to the extreme. She has always been like this, but for some reason, when she saw you, her emotions actually fluctuated. Hearing this, Jian Wushuang's face became unusually gloomy. She could accept that Lung Wushuang went to the Supreme Emotion Valley to cultivate. After all, Lung Wushuang was extremely talented and had a lot of room for growth. A top sect like the Supreme Emotion Valley was indeed suitable for her growth. But if she went there, she would have to abandon all her feelings, which was not what he wanted. Shuang'er already can't remember me. If I let her go to the Supreme Emotion Valley and cultivate that divine art, then the chances of her remembering me in the future would be very slim. Chapter 2909, Decision I can't let Shuang'er go to the Supreme Emotion Valley. Jian Wushuang clenched his hands. He had been looking for her for a long time. It had been 100,000 years in his previous life. Now that he finally saw Lung Wushuang again in this life, how could Jian Wushuang let her leave his side again? Moreover, once Lung Wushuang went to a place, she had to abandon all her emotions and forget everything in the past. Taking a deep breath, Jian Wushuang had made up his mind, and his face became determined. Buzz, buzz, buzz. His already extremely powerful aura suddenly soared at this moment. When the experts of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion around him saw this, their expressions immediately became solemn. Jian Yi, what do you want to do? Elder Qin, who was suppressed in the Blood Mountain sword, immediately shouted in a low voice. She could feel Jian Wushuang's emotional fluctuation. What do you want to do? What do you think? Jian Wushuang's eyes turned cold. The next moment, boom, Jian Wushuang moved directly. Like a flowing light phantom, He rushed toward the manor where Lung Rushuang lived with earth-shaking power. As soon as he moved, the surrounding people also became violent. "Stop him!" Long Xingzi shouted. In an instant, 4 immortal saints from the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion, including Long Xingzi, moved simultaneously. "Stop!" Chu Yong's voice was cold and harsh. He joined hands with another immortal saint, and the two of them stood in front of Jian Wushuang with monstrous auras. Whoosh! Chu Yong continued to wave his scarlet long spear, which was filled with flames. Then, finally, he left a huge fire passage in the void and suddenly appeared in front of Jian Wushuang. The immortal saint who was standing with him waved his massive fist. His fist was like a vast mountain, containing millions of kilograms of strength. It was as if he was going to smash the sky with one punch. The two stood in front of Jian Wushuang, while Long Xingzi and the other immortal saint attacked Jian Wushuang from both sides. Jian Wushuang's eyes were cold. The moment the immortal saints moved, a huge blood-red river with dark golden light surged out from his body. The blood-red river surged with overwhelming power and covered the entire void in an instant. Jian Wushuang had fully exerted his realm techniques, including the 9-universe blood-red river, the Star Armor realm, and the Prison of Punishment. Under the pressure of this realm, even experts like Long Xingzi, who were immortal saints, were immediately suppressed. Their strength was hidden by at least 20%. Then, Jian Wushuang attacked at lightning speed. His Blood Mountain sword slashed forward 2 times in a row. Clang! Clang! Like a mountain, Chu Yong's long spear and the immortal saint's colossal fist were sent flying. As for Long Xingzi, who was attacking from the side, Jian Wushuang also fought them head-on. His sword light was powerful and quickly blocked the attacks of the two, but the 4 immortal saints also stopped him. "Jian Yi, you have no right to be presumptuous in the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion." Long Xingzi's voice was cold, and his aura was getting stronger. Beside him, Chu Yong and the other 3 immortal saints were also staring at Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang was indeed very famous in the 9 realms of the Golden Crow. After all, he had killed 2 of them under the siege of the 3 immortal saints. Even the strongest among them, Long Xingzi, would not be a match for him in a one-on-one fight, but now they had 4 immortal saints working together, and this was the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion. They were confident that they could take Jian Wushuang down. Humph! Jian Wushuang snorted and did not speak. But at this moment, he immediately activated the Supreme Sword Essence in the Blood Mountain sword. That Supreme Sword Essence was extremely powerful. Jian Wushuang's understanding of the sword principle had reached the 2nd level, the Boundless Sword Tree, which was 3,300 meters tall. With this move, he instantly guided 1% of the sword essence to sweep out. Buzz! Buzz! A supreme and extraordinary sword essence suddenly burst out. The power of this sword essence was so strong that it caused heaven and earth to be moved. The 4 immortal saints surrounding Jian Wushuang changed their expressions when they sensed this sword essence. What a powerful sword essence! When this sword essence killed Realm Lord Tianchu and the others, it also burst out the same sword essence. Therefore, this sword essence must have come from the magic sword in his hand. That magic sword, if I'm not mistaken, should be the sword principal magic weapon that Elder Mo used to refine with the holy heavenly furnace and caused a huge commotion. Be careful, don't underestimate him. The 4 immortal saints looked highly solemn. The supreme sword essence swept out, and with the help of this supreme sword essence, the power of Jian Wushuang's swordsmanship suddenly soared. Whoosh! Jian Wushuang attacked again. He slashed with one hand, and the Blood Mountain sword in his hand drew a perfect arc in the void. In an instant, a shocking sword light was directly released. This sword light was immense, boundless, and extremely bright. The most important thing was the power contained in the sword light. Unfortunately, with the support of the Supreme Sword Essence, the power became too terrifying. When Long Xingzi, Chu Yong, and the others saw this sword light, the corners of their mouths could not help but twitch. Attack together to block. Long Xingzi let out a low shout. The 4 immortal saints immediately attacked. The 4 of them came from the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion, and they worked together with great tacit understanding. Thus, although the 4 of them attacked separately, their power could be perfectly combined. Boom! A loud sound shook the sky and earth. But in the end, 4 muffled groans sounded at the same time, and the 4 immortal saints of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion were sent flying by the terrifying power of the sword light at the first moment. 2 of them were weaker, and their faces were a little pale. The rebounding force had slightly injured them. We 4 immortal saints can't even fight head-on. The power of the sword light is so strong. Long Xingzi was shocked. He did not know that Jian Wushuang had used such a shocking sword light to kill Realm Lord Tianchu when he had just made a breakthrough in his sword principle and guided his sword essence. Now that Jian Wushuang's comprehension of the space-time and reincarnation rules had reached the immortal saint level, his strength had soared again. The power of such a sword light was naturally more terrifying. Although Long Xingzi and the other 3 were working together, their strength was not much stronger. The most powerful Long Xingzi was only slightly stronger than the former master of the heavenly curve world. Therefore, even if they worked together, Jian Wushuang could still defeat them head-on. Chapter 29:10, Gold Dragon and Blood Phoenix. Those who block me will die. Jian Wushuang sent the 4 immortal saints flying with a single strike. His murderous aura was so strong that his cold voice spread throughout the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion. The Dragon Phoenix Pavilion had been completely shaken. Countless experts and disciples had rushed here. When they saw Jian Wushuang send Long Xingzi and the others flying with a single strike, the experts and disciples of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion were all shocked. That man! Jian Yi, it's him! Demoness Ji Yu was among the crowd. When she saw this scene, her heart was filled with great waves. Many years ago, she had fought with Jian Wushuang in the Beiming Starfield. At that time, Jian Wushuang was only slightly stronger than her. It had only been a short while, but the latter was already strong enough to fight against the top experts of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion. Moreover, it was a 1 versus 4 fight. Jian Yi, I admit that you are strong, but that doesn't mean that you can do whatever you want in the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion. The Dragon Phoenix Pavilion has existed in the 9 realms of the Golden Crow for so many years, and its heritage is beyond your imagination. Moreover, you are now staying in the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion's nest. So Long Xingzi's eyes were like lightning. He stared at Jian Wushuang. Everyone, follow me to activate the formation and kill this boy. As soon as he finished his words, a surge of mighty divine power rose from Long Xingzi's body. The divine power did not sweep toward Jian Wushuang. Instead, it surged into the void above and merged with the tremendous sect-protecting formation that had always existed above the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion. At the same time, Chu Yong and the other 2 immortal saints also surged with majestic divine power and merged with the sect-protecting formation. As the divine power was poured in, an ancient and extremely powerful aura slowly invaded the sect-protecting formation. Just as Long Xingzi had said, the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion had existed in the 9 realms of the Golden Crow for so many years and had a very deep foundation. The Dragon Phoenix Pavilion had many trump cards, and one of the most powerful trump cards was the sect-protecting formation that had been in and out of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion for a long time. The founder of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion, Ancient Sage, had paid a great price to hire several powerful array masters to refine this formation. To refine this formation, the Ancient Sage had also spent a great deal of effort and cost, in particular, to find the 2 most critical true spirits that made up this formation. The Ancient Sage had to search through thousands of mountains and rivers to see it finally. Ever since the formation was constructed, the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion had been guarding it for countless years. Unfortunately, over the years, the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion had encountered powerful enemies as well. For example, when the second Pavilion Master was still in power, the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion experienced a great crisis. However, even though the crisis was great, no one had been able to directly attack the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion's headquarters because of the existence of the sect-protecting formation. After generations of improvement by the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion, the power of this great formation became even more formidable. And now, under the guidance of Long Xingzi and the other 4 immortal saints, the power of this sect-protecting great formation was unleashed. Roar. A furious roar and a hissing sound resounded through the void at the same time. Two majestic forces began to gather within the sect-protecting great formation above. A moment later, they formed two enormous creatures. One of the two giant creatures was a huge golden dragon that was more than 1,000 feet long. This golden dragon had 4 claws and was covered in golden scales. A pair of golden eyes looked down on its colossal dragon head. These eyes contained endless pressure, and a massive surge of genuine dragon chi was completely spread out. The other giant creature was scarlet all over as if it was covered in blood. It was also huge, but it looked extremely noble and beautiful. It was a phoenix, and it was a blood phoenix. Golden dragon, blood phoenix. Jian Wushuang narrowed his eyes and looked at the two giant creatures above him. After the golden dragon and blood phoenix were formed, the aura on its body had been increasing crazily. In just a moment, it had reached a shocking level. Then, the golden dragon and blood phoenix moved directly. Boom! The huge 4-clawed golden dragon swooped down. But, before its huge body could get close to Jian Wushuang, a shocking power of the true dragon had already pressed down on Jian Wushuang. Suddenly, one of the 4 sharp claws of the golden dragon swung its front claw. Whoosh! A bright golden light appeared in the void. The golden light was so bright that it seemed to replace all the light in the world. The void trembled violently under this claw. This power, Jian Wushuang's face darkened. He could feel the power of the golden dragon's claw. This claw could tear the sky apart. If it were just an ordinary immortal saint, he would probably be torn into pieces by this claw. Fortunately, his battle strength was not comparable to that of an ordinary immortal saint. Jian Wushuang stood in the void and looked up at the golden light that was attacking him. Then, he suddenly rushed forward, and the supreme sword essence was exerted to the limit in an instant. Whoosh! A vast and majestic sword light swept out again. The sword light was extremely shrill and collided with the incoming golden light. After a loud sound, both of them dissipated. The golden dragon had already pounced over. Catcher! The golden dragon grabbed Jian Wushuang's Blood Mountain sword with one of his dragon claws. Then, the second dragon claw grabbed Jian Wushuang's head at lightning speed. Ridiculous! Jian Wushuang sneered. With a thought, the power of the Blood Mountain sword in his hand soared. Under Jian Wushuang's force, the sharp sword edge cut through the golden dragon's sharp claw, and then it collided with the second claw. A powerful force was transmitted through the dragon claw. Jian Wushuang slightly lowered his body and took a few steps back. However, just as he steadied himself, a scorching aura suddenly came from the void beside him. Jian Wushuang turned his head and saw that the blood phoenix had already appeared by his side. Its mouth had also opened. Boom! Scarlet flames that could burn the void spurted out of the blood phoenix's mouth, and the vast world instantly turned into a scarlet sea of fire. Jian Wushuang was in the center of the scarlet sea of fire. Wow, the temperature of this flame is terrifying. Fortunately, it's me. If it were an ordinary immortal saint, I'm afraid that this flame would melt him in an instant. Instead, Jian Wushuang was secretly amazed. His body protection ability was extremely powerful, and the key was that he had the perfect immortal body. The scarlet flames swept over him crazily. Although he was severely injured at the first moment, he quickly recovered with his divine power. Whoosh! Jian Wushuang flashed and escaped from the sea of fire. Chapter 29:11 Dragons and Phoenixes. The power of the Golden Dragon and the Blood Phoenix is really powerful. Jian Wushuang looked at the two giants in front of him with a heavy heart. Humph, Sword One, do you think the sect-protecting formation of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion is only so powerful in attacking? Long Xingzi sneered and looked at the 3 immortal saints around him. Use that move. Chu Yong and the other 2 nodded heavily. In an instant, their divine power surged again. Golden light surged out of Long Xingzi's body. Dragon and Phoenix cry, kill the demon. With Long Xingzi's low shout, the 3-clawed golden dragon, which was over 300 meters long, suddenly let out a dragon cry. The dragon's cry was unusually loud and reverberated between heaven and earth. At the same time, visible ripples spread out and covered the void around Jian Wushuang in the blink of an eye. This is Jian Wushuang's expression changed. When the ripples spread out, he had already sensed the special power contained within them. Spacetime, it's the power of spacetime. Jian Wushuang was shocked and immediately realized that the spacetime he was in had been completely sealed. A huge force came directly toward him and sealed him. Although Jian Wushuang had monstrous strength, he felt that he had nowhere to use it at this moment. The power firmly sealed him, making it very difficult for him to move. At this time, the blood phoenix on the other side had endless blood-colored flames surging on its body. The color of the blood-colored flames was darker than before, and it had even turned black and red. The temperature of the black and red flames was even more astonishing. Bind. The fire phoenix also let out a cry, and in the next moment, endless black and red flames crazily covered this patch of the void. Moreover, the moment the flames touched this patch of the void, they immediately fused perfectly with the spacetime energy that acted on this patch of the void. In an instant, this patch of void started burning crazily. Under the burning of the terrifying flame, everything was annihilated. In the surrounding void, Long Xingzi and the others watched everything with a trace of coldness in their eyes. When they saw that Jian Wushuang had been completely covered by the black-red sea of fire, a cold smile appeared on their faces. Although the sect-protecting formation of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion is mainly used to defend against external enemies, and although it's not very good in terms of offensive and killing, now that the four of us are driving the formation to evolve into a golden dragon and a blood phoenix, together with the Dragon Phoenix cry, even an ordinary immortal saint who has mastered the immortal body would find it difficult to resist it. As for Jian Yi, although he has also mastered the immortal body, he is only a divine master and doesn't have much divine power. Under this move, he won't be able to hold on for long and his divine power will be completely exhausted. At that time, even if he has the immortal body, he will definitely die. Long Xingzi sneered. The three immortal saints and Long Xingzi also had the same thought. They all thought that Jian Wushuang was dead for sure. Even if he did not die, his divine power would be exhausted. Then they would kill him. But at this moment, something unexpected happened. Buzz. A sword light suddenly lit up. It seemed to be able to tear the world apart. After it appeared, it directly split the sea of fire where Jian Wushuang was in half. A large number of flames spread in all directions, revealing a wide passage. At the end of the passage, a young figure holding a long sword slowly walked out. What? He actually broke this move? How is it possible? The most terrifying thing is not the burning of the Blood Phoenix's flames, but the spacetime imprisonment that comes with it. Under the spacetime imprisonment, he should have been burned by the Blood Phoenix's flames, but he actually broke free from the Golden Dragon's spacetime imprisonment. Long Xingzi and the other three were shocked. They did not know that the spacetime imprisonment of the Golden Dragon was indeed powerful. If it were any other immortal saint, he would not be able to resist the spacetime imprisonment and would only be burned by the Blood Phoenix flame. However, Jian Wushuang was different. First, his divine power was extremely powerful. Second, he was good at the spacetime rules and had reached the level of the immortal saint. Thirdly, and most importantly, he knew how to use such a spacetime imprisonment skill. For example, the heaven-designated skill, which could freeze time and space, was much more profound than this spacetime imprisonment skill. Jian Wushuang was very familiar with this skill, so he naturally knew how to break it. Therefore, after falling into spacetime imprisonment for only a moment, he directly broke free. Dragon and Phoenix Cry is indeed a good technique, but unfortunately, it's me. Jian Wushuang sneered and looked at the Golden Dragon and Blood Phoenix in front of him with a fierce look in his eyes. Then, he slowly raised the long sword in his hand and slashed it. This slash seemed to be an easy one, but, the moment it was slashed, Jian Wushuang's swordsmanship, the supreme sword essence guided by the Blood Mountain sword, and the power of the infinite sword tree in his body had been exerted to the extreme. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Many spacetime rules condensed together with the sword essence, forming one spacetime blade after another. More than 400 spacetime blades were densely packed together, and these spacetime blades had wholly merged with the sword essence. The spacetime rules and swordsmanship were perfectly combined. The ninth move of spacetime swordsmanship, Storm. Boom. A fierce wind suddenly swept up between heaven and earth. A colossal storm rose out of thin air in the void where Jian Wushuang's sword essence was directed. This storm contained more than 400 spacetime blades and endless shocking sword essence. It was terrifying, and the storm had already swept toward Golden Dragon and Blood Phoenix. Golden Dragon and Blood Phoenix seemed to have sensed the terrifying power contained in this storm and wanted to flee at once. However, the storm was too fast, at least more quickly than their fleeing speed. Moreover, the storm was getting bigger and bigger as it swept through. The Golden Dragon and the Blood Phoenix did not escape far before they were swept into the storm. But, then, under the endless killing power, the Golden Dragon and the Blood Phoenix did not struggle much before they were directly crushed into pieces. Then, they turned into a sky full of power and returned to the sect-protecting array. How could this be? Long Xingzi and the others behind them were shocked when they saw this scene. The Golden Dragon and Blood Phoenix formed by the sect-protecting formation, fully guided by the four of them, were mighty. They should have been able to fight against a true saint who had an immortal body, but Jian Wushuang crushed them. Chapter 29:12. Saint Hong, how could Jian Yi be so powerful? Long Xingzi and the others were shocked. There was nothing they could do. However, Jian Wushuang's strength was much stronger than they had imagined. He was much stronger than when Jian Wushuang killed Realm Lord Tianchu and the others. Now that the Golden Dragon and Blood Phoenix had been defeated, the only one in the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion who could stop Jian Wushuang was him. Humph! After killing the Golden Dragon and Blood Phoenix, Jian Wushuang snorted. He did not even bother to look at Long Xingzi and the others. Instead, he immediately rushed toward the manor where Lung Rushuang lived. However, he stopped shortly after he moved. The reason was that a figure had appeared in front of him. It was an older man in a yellow daoist robe. The older man's eyes were cloudy, and he stood there as if the wind could blow him down. However, it was because of him that Jian Wushuang stopped. Jian Wushuang looked at the older man in a daoist robe, and his face became very serious. Although the vicissitudes of life elder in front of him did not emit any aura or show any skills, he just stood there, and it gave Jian Wushuang tremendous pressure. The pressure was too great. It was much more significant than when he faced the Golden Dragon Blood Phoenix and the four immortal saints simultaneously. Jian Wushuang instantly understood that the Weathered Elder must be a very powerful expert. The experts of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion also saw the appearance of the Weathered Elder. Some of the young experts and disciples were puzzled. They did not know the Weathered Elder. However, some of the top experts who had stayed in the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion for a long time, including Long Xingzi, were excited. It's Saint Hong, the previous pavilion master of our Dragon Phoenix Pavilion. The previous pavilion master is still in our Dragon Phoenix Pavilion. That's great. Haha, with the previous pavilion master here, Jian Yi can't be arrogant anymore. Surprised voices kept ringing in the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion. Those experts who knew the identity of the Weathered Elder were all very excited. Saint Hong? Jian Wushuang narrowed his eyes and stared at the elder, quickly recalling the information in his mind. Soon, he understood the identity of the person who came. The previous pavilion master of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion was also ranked on the Dragon Phoenix list, and he ranked 5th on the list. Many years ago, he broke through to become an immortal saint. When he was in charge of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion, he was known as the Immortal Saint, the closest to Bone Emperor in the 9 realms of the Golden Crow. However, 100,000 years ago, he disappeared and passed on the position of Pavilion Master to Long Xingzi. It was rumored that he left the 9 realms of the Golden Crow and went to the vast third firmament. But now it seems that it's not the case. Jian Wushuang's heart was very heavy. There was nothing he could do. Long Xingzi was no match for Saint Hong. He was also the pavilion master of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion, but he was mighty. 100,000 years ago, he was already known as the Immortal Saint, the closest to Bone Emperor in the 9 realms of the Golden Crow. Now that 100,000 years had passed, his strength must be even more terrifying. Is this the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion's last resort? Jian Wushuang stared at Saint Hong with a burning gaze. Although this Saint Hong was very famous, Jian Wushuang was also very powerful now. So he was not afraid of Saint Hong at all. I have been in seclusion for many years. I didn't want to appear again, but you are making too much noise today. Saint Hong opened his eyes slightly, revealing a pair of cold eyes. After all, we're in the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion. Do you think no one in the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion can act so recklessly? I dare not. The Dragon Phoenix Pavilion is famous in the 9 realms of the Golden Crow. I don't want to be enemies with the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion unless it's necessary, Jian Wushuang said. In that case, please release the elder who suppressed the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion. Then, I'll let bygones be bygones and let you leave safely afterward. What do you think? Saint Hong said. Jian Wushuang did not say anything, but Long Xingzi was already anxious. Grand Uncle Master, Jian Yi is so reckless in the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion and even suppressed the elder on the spot. If the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion doesn't kill him on the spot, he will become the laughingstock of all the forces. From now on, the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion will lose its prestige in the Golden Crow 9 realms. Therefore, Grand Uncle Master, please kill Jian Yi on the spot. Even if you can't kill him, you have to punish him severely. Right, we can't let him go so easily. If we let him go so easily, where will our Dragon Phoenix Pavilion lose face? The immortal saint of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion and the surrounding experts were all furious. None of them were willing to let Jian Wushuang go. Seeing this, Saint Hong frowned slightly. Shut up! Saint Hong shouted in a low voice. Long Xingzi and the others immediately stopped talking. After that, no one dared to say another word. After suppressing all the voices, Saint Hong looked at Jian Wushuang again and asked, "My young friend, are you willing?" Haha, Saint Hong is so bold. No one in the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion is willing to let me go, but you are. Jian Wushuang laughed heartily, then he said, "I can release Elder Qin and leave immediately, but I have to take another person with me." Another person? Are you talking about the young phoenix of our Dragon Phoenix Pavilion? Saint Hong asked. Yes, as long as you let me take her away, I can apologize for what happened today. Regardless of what price the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion needs me to pay, I will agree as long as I have it. After that, not only will I not offend the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion, but I will also owe the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion a huge favor. In the future, if your Dragon Phoenix Pavilion is in danger, I will do my best to help you. How about it? Jian Wushuang said in a deep voice. Hearing this, Saint Hong pondered for a moment and then shook his head. No, the young phoenix is essential to the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion. I can't let you take her away. In that case, there's nothing more to say. However, I've long heard that the previous pavilion master of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion, Saint Hong, is the immortal saint closest to the Bone Emperor in the 9 realms of the Golden Crow. Since I'm lucky enough to meet her today, I'd like to have a good experience. Jian Wushuang's aura had become cold. It seems that you have made up your mind. In that case, I will accompany you. Saint Hong's voice also became cold. At the same time, a terrifying aura slowly rose from his body. Chapter 29:13, The World of Ice and Snow Rumble. Even though they were both immortal saints, the aura emanating from Saint Hong's body was much stronger than Long Xingzi's and the others. It was at least several times stronger. This terrifying aura suppressed heaven and earth. Saint Hong flipped his palm, and a dark golden stone staff appeared in his hand. This dark golden stone stick had an extremely powerful aura. It was a saint treasure at the peak of the 3rd grade. Saint Hong took a step forward and instantly crossed the distance between him and Jian Wushuang. Thus, he appeared in front of Jian Wushuang. Then, he swung the dark golden stone stick in his hand. It looked like an ordinary person waving a stick. There was not much mystery to it, but a giant dark golden stick shadow appeared as soon as he swung the stick. The dark golden stick shadow was mighty, like a flood dragon's body. It suddenly swung toward Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang did not dare to be careless. When Saint Hong waved the stone stick in his hand, his Blood Mountain sword immediately slashed out. Jian Wushuang also waved his sword, but he had already exerted the power of his divine power to the maximum. The boundless sword tree in his body trembled slightly and burst out with eternal sword essence. The supreme sword essence from the Blood Mountain sword also burst out without restraint. The sword light from the Blood Mountain sword collided with the dark golden staff shadow in the blink of an eye. Clang! As soon as a low sound of collision was heard, a surge of divine power immediately formed a storm that swept out in all directions. There were many experts from the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion around the two of them. When they saw the divine power storm, they were so frightened that they immediately retreated. In the center of the battlefield, Jian Wushuang's face was cold. Yet, he could feel the power contained in the dark golden longstaff. The power was not weaker than his, and it was even a little stronger than his. Suddenly, Saint Hong pulled his longstaff and then smashed it again. Again, it was natural and without any hesitation. Jian Wushuang also immediately waved his sword and used the same power. However, when the two collided again, Jian Wushuang's body trembled slightly. Ha! Saint Hong suddenly let out a long laugh. The dark golden long stick in his hand was like a firestorm wheel, smashing toward Jian Wushuang again and again. Each stick contained a shocking power. Each stick was violent and straightforward, but it was also extremely terrifying. One stick after another crazily smashed toward Jian Wushuang. Even Jian Wushuang was a little surprised when he saw the stick shadow crazily smashing toward him. Jian Wushuang immediately displayed his swordsmanship. He also brandished his sword and met with Saint Hong head-on. It was a head-on fight. However, in such a fight, it was evident that Saint Hong had the absolute advantage while Jian Wushuang kept retreating. Bang! There was another violent bang. Jian Wushuang's body sank and almost fell to the ground. Ha ha, I have comprehended the rules of the earth. With the help of the power of the earth, the power of my stick is endless, and each stick is stronger than the last. My long stick is made of special crystals, and I also pay attention to power. You, a sword principle cultivator who has comprehended the rules of space and time, dare to confront me head-on. You are overestimating yourself. Saint Hong's mighty voice resounded in the world. He stepped forward again, and the dark golden long stick in his hand became more powerful. Then, with the power of the rules of the earth, it attacked Jian Wushuang again. Seeing this, Jian Wushuang's eyes turned cold. Overestimating yourself? Jian Wushuang gave a strange smile, and then, whoosh, 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 whoosh. Black streamers appeared in front of Jian Wushuang like black lightning. These black streamers were the Netherblood Divine Swords at the superior heavenly treasure level. Although these Netherblood Divine Swords were only at the superior heavenly treasure level, there were a total of 18 of them. Under Jian Wushuang's control, these 18 Netherblood Divine Swords had perfectly fused in the blink of an eye. Buzz! A faint humming sound, like the sound of a sword, slowly sounded. A brand new, 5-meter-long black divine sword with a very thin sword body appeared in the world. The third level of the reincarnation sword formation, Reincarnation Drunk. This sword formation is the reincarnation sword formation created by Sword Master Copperheart. Saint Hong looked at the sword formation with a strange expression. Sword Master Copperheart was a super expert who was almost invincible among the immortal saints. So Saint Hong naturally knew about it and knew about the reincarnation sword formation. Sword Master Tong Xin was so famous that the power of the Samsara sword formation he created could not be underestimated. Go! Jian Wushuang pointed from afar, and the 5-meter-long black magic sword instantly pierced through the void and shot toward Saint Hong. In an instant, the black magic sword appeared in front of Saint Hong. Humph! Saint Hong snorted and waved the dark golden long stick in his hand. It brought along the endless power of the earth's rules and smashed directly into the black magic sword. Bang! The 5-meter-long black divine sword shook slightly and then collapsed. It's just the third reincarnation sword formation. It's just a joke in front of me, Saint Hong said disdainfully. Really? Jian Wushuang smiled and said, the third reincarnation sword formation can't do anything to you. What about the fourth one? As soon as Jian Wushuang finished his words, the underworld blood divine swords reassembled. This time, the combination was more complicated, And the power of the law of reincarnation was obviously bigger. In the blink of an eye, a brand new sword formation appeared in front of everyone. It was also a black divine sword, but it was less than 2 meters long, but its body was very wide. When the 2-meter-long black divine sword was put together, the world around it suddenly turned grey. This greyish-white looked as if it had fallen into a vast expanse of white snow. There was a vast expanse of white everywhere except for the pitch-black divine sword in the void. This black divine sword naturally became the sole focus of the world. The 4th level. Saint Hong's pupils could not help but shrink. The reincarnation sword formation was stronger and stronger. Previously, he was only at the 3rd level of the samsara drunkard. As long as his comprehension of the laws of reincarnation reached the limit of a supreme being, he could easily use it. He did not care about it at all. However, the 4th level was completely different. The 4th level of the reincarnation sword formation required the comprehension of the laws of reincarnation to reach the level of an immortal saint. Its power was much more powerful than the 3rd level. And this samsara sword formation was called the world of ice and snow. Kill. With a thought, Zhen Wushuang shot out the only black divine sword in the vast white world. It was extremely fast, and the most important thing was that it was too powerful. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories,